When you hear the word home, what comes to mind? What image do you see? What feelings do you feel? It has been really a joy to be here with you all this week. My wife and I landed a few days early. We got some time to sightsee and drive around the island, and I will say Prince Edward Island is beautiful. We've met a lot of interesting and delightful people. We've had some incredible conversations. We've loved walking around downtown Charlottetown and eating at some of the restaurants. I would say tonight was the second best fish and chips I've had since I've been here. So we've had a lot of fish and chips. I'm still putting Brits from downtown at the top of my list since I've been here. I've enjoyed their fish and chips. Tonight was pretty good too. We've enjoyed lots of good food, lots of good conversation. It's been fun to meet a lot of you and hear some of your story and visit with a lot of you around here and meet some of you and hear what you're up to, working at the shelter for men who are kind of struggling, and some of you who are pastoring in various churches. You are filling in for 30 years in a church, right? And various things like this. And to hear some of your stories, it has been great to meet all of you. Nevertheless, Boise's home, right? You guys are nice and all. The food's been great and all. Your city is beautiful and all. But my house is in Boise. My bed is in Boise. I like my pillow there better than the pillow at the hotel. I'll just be honest, you know. My kids are there, right? And we live in an age where, you have mass communication, and we've gotten texts from our daughter, and we've gotten texts from our daughter-in-law, and texts from our son. My son's currently taking some graduate classes, and he texted me the other day, "Hey, Dad, this is final week of this class," and he's like, "All I have left is the final exam and the final binder project for this class, and I'm going into it with 100%. And I could text back, "I'm so proud of you, son," right? Like, that's my home. That's where my family is. In a lot of ways, that's where my heart is. My grandkids are there, right? I'll be honest, I'm missing hearing, "Papa, Papa," right? When I come downstairs from upstairs office and they just got to the house. I'm missing holding our little 3-month-old and having her smile and coo and talk at me. That's home. It's been home for a long time. And so it's been great to be here. And I do enough traveling and speaking that whenever I get on the plane to head home, I'll be honest, I'm excited. And when Friday comes, it'll be a long travel day, but I'll be excited to go home. And Sunday is Mother's Day, and the whole family will be at the house. There'll be like 20 or so people at the house on Sunday, and we'll get to see everybody, and they'll all ask about you all and the trip and how it all went, and we'll tell them stories, and it'll be great to all be together. That's home, right? And I'm sure you could tell the same sort of stories, places you've been, and you had great times, but you were excited to go back home. You were ready to go home after visiting. You couldn't wait to see your family again. You couldn't wait to be with your people again. Home. Right? Well, this morning, in the first couple sessions, we looked at, in the first session, out of 1 Peter, this idea that we are foreigners and exiles living in a strange land. We're like outsiders, even in our own home country. And then in the second session, we looked at the calling that identity gives us, that we have this vocation, this calling. It's not just a Christian calling. It goes clear back to Genesis 1, and it's our full-on human calling. And that calling is to be a kingdom of priests, to image God, to be like this angled mirror that represents God's goodness and wisdom back into the world, as well as take up the hurts and pains of the world and carry them back up to God in prayer. We looked at those two themes this morning. Tonight, I really want to pick up on the same idea of being strangers and exiles and foreigners, and I want us to think about another aspect of what it looks like to live in view of that. This morning we said that one of the fundamental ways we can live out that calling individually and collectively is by doing good in our towns and in our neighborhoods and with the people around us, and showing them how God is wise and kind and good and compassionate and caring and all of that. But there's another aspect to being foreigners and exiles that oftentimes it seems like in the contemporary church we don't talk about very often, and I think it's unfortunate. In fact, it's one of the classic Christian kind of theological virtues. There's ethical virtues in the classic Christian tradition, and there's theological virtues in the classic Christian tradition. And one of the theological virtues is hope. Hope. And unfortunately, I feel like so much of our contemporary Christianity doesn't talk often enough or doesn't talk wisely and well enough about our hope. And so tonight I want us to think about living as foreigners and exiles here and what that means for our destiny down the road someday there. All right? And I want to do that by looking at a couple passages, one set of passages out of the book of Hebrews and another passage out of the book of 1 John. And the passage I want to look at in Hebrews comes from the famous Hall of Fame of Faith in Hebrews chapter 11. And in the structure of the book of Hebrews, the way the book of Hebrews works is, if you know kind of the backstory, the letter of Hebrews is written to a group of Jewish Christians who are considering reverting back to Judaism and turning their back on Jesus. And the author of Hebrews does everything he can to help them realize that's not only going backwards, it's plain foolish, because Jesus is the best thing that has ever come into the world and is the best thing that's ever happened to you. So don't turn the clock back and think that's going to be better. And so he'll offer some reason why Jesus is better, and then he'll give some call to action. And then he'll offer some other reason why Jesus is better, and then he'll give some call to action. Like a good preacher, right? He intermixes explanation and call to action, explanation, call to action. And then when you get to chapter 11, it's sort of like the climactic moment in the book of Hebrews, where he's going to gather together a whole series of examples, basically saying, look, all these people, they had opportunities to go back to, and they chose to keep moving forward. Please do the same thing. That's how chapter 11 functions in the flow of Hebrews. So I want to look at just a couple of the examples he gives, because what they say to us attaches so well to what we talked about this morning, this theme of being strangers and exiles, and how then we ought to live in view of that. So Hebrews chapter 11, picking up in verse 8 with the example of Abraham. Abraham is the kind of founding father of the Jewish people. He is the hero of faith of all heroes of faith of the Jewish people. And this is what it says about Abraham. By faith, Abraham, when he was called by God, obeyed, going out to a place which he was to receive for inheritance, and he left, not knowing where he was going. He didn't have Google Maps, right? He didn't have GPS. He's living up kind of in what is now modern-day Syria up north, and God says, I'm going to give you a land kind of down to the southwest a little bit. It's going to someday be the land of your heirs and ancestors, and that's going to be the promised land I'm going to give you. So you need to pack everything up there in Haran and just kind of begin heading south and southwest. I'll let you know when you get there. And Abraham went, trusting God. All right, if you say go that direction, I'll go that direction. And Abraham went. And then it continues in verse 9 and says, by faith he lived as a stranger. A stranger. We saw that word this morning when we were looking at 1 Peter. He lived as a resident alien, an outsider, a foreigner. God says, here's the land I'm going to give to you, but right now you don't own a square foot of it. You're a stranger in the land of promise, as in a foreign land. You're that outsider. You're the foreigner. You're here. There's people that are already living here, but guess what? Someday, Abraham, that's going to be your land, but right now you're a stranger and a foreigner. And then he says, living in tents. Living in tents. Why? Because Abram and his family at this point, they didn't have a home. They were nomads, and they had goat hair tents with tent pegs and everything else, and living like, Arabian nomads throughout what is the promised land for Abraham. Living in tents with Isaac and then Jacob, fellow heirs of the same promise, and then he gives a reason. He's living in tents, living as a foreigner, living as a stranger. Why? Look at verse 10. Because he was looking for a city, living in tents as a nomad, but looking for a city. Do you hear the contrast? A tent dweller who can pack up shop easily while he's looking for a permanent residency, permanent homeland, permanent place to live. A nomad versus a city dweller. He's living in tents right now because he's looking for a city which has foundations, whose architect and whose builder is God. He's living in tents as a nomad or a pilgrim while he's waiting for a ultimate, final, permanent sound foundation. That's Abraham, and that's his example for us. In another place in Hebrews 11, the author uses the example of Moses, another key character in Israelite history. And this is what it says about Moses. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Most of you have been around church long enough, you know the story of Moses, right? How he was put in a little basket set in the Nile River. His sister Miriam watches from a distance. Pharaoh's daughter is bathing in the river. She finds the basket. Oh, there's a baby. Wow. And then, Pharaoh's daughter is going to say, like, hey, I'll just take this baby as my own. And Miriam's like, I got somebody who can nurse that baby for you. And it turns out to be their mom, right? That's the story. And so he grows up as a prince in Egypt, in the royal household, with all the pleasures of Egypt, with all the status, with all the wealth, with all the learning, all the benefits of being a prince in Egypt. But when he grew up, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. I'm not an Egyptian. I'm not an Egyptian royalty. I really don't care about the wealth of Egypt, choosing rather to endure ill treatment with God's people than to enjoy the temporary pleasures of sin. Could have had all this ease, comfort, pleasure, everything good, but you know what? I'm going to renounce that, and I'm going to remember who I am. I'm part of the people of God. I'm going to identify with Him, even if that means ill treatment, mistreatment, and difficulty and hard. Considering the reproach of the Messiah greater riches than the treasures of Egypt. And then once again, we get a reason. Why? Because he was looking for the reward. Abraham is looking for a city. Moses is looking for the reward beyond just what he could have had in Egypt, beyond the pleasures and the comforts and the joys of Egypt. He's looking for something beyond that, bigger than that, greater than that. He's looking for the reward. In between those two passages, one about Abraham and one about Moses, in between that, the author of Hebrews pauses. We skipped it, but the author of Hebrews pauses and makes an editorial comment about these examples. Look what he says, Hebrews 11, verse 13. All these, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Moses, all of these heroes of the faith, all of these died in faith. What does he mean by died in faith? Well, he clarifies, without receiving the promises. Abraham, someday this is going to be your family land, but he died never owning a square inch. Someday you're going to live here. And Jacob died without ever owning a square inch. Moses died without ever being in the promised land. All of them were looking ahead to something they never received in their lifetime. They died waiting, watching, and believing and trusting in God's promises, but having seen and welcomed those promises from a distance, and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on earth. Do you see how it overlaps with what we were talking about this morning? Strangers and exiles on earth, not receiving what they had hoped for. I have a friend named Mark. My wife and I have known Mark since he was a Bible college student with us. And Mark recently, he's had kind of an up and down course over his life. And he recently realized, you know what, he's about 10 years older than us, and so he was approaching retirement age, and yet because of various financial choices and various difficulties in life, he didn't have much of a retirement plan or much of a retirement account saved up. So he realized it's like, hey, you know what? If I retire now with what I have, I can't make it in the United States, but I can move to the Philippines. And I can live like a king in the Philippines on my meager little retirement from the States. So Mark did that. Retired, packed up, moved to the Philippines. He was just at our house a few weeks ago, and I asked him how it's going. He's been there not quite a year. And he's like, well, I sure miss home. He's like, the Philippines is kind of like my home again, and he's got some people that he's connected with there, so it's kind of like home, but I miss my friends. I miss my family. I miss the food. I don't really like Filipino food, Mark said. And not only that, he's like, I don't really go many places because I refuse to drive. They're crazy how they drive in the Philippines. So he refuses to drive, and any place he goes, he's going to walk. And so he doesn't go very far, doesn't drive anywhere. He lives in the Philippines, but it's still not really home. Right? Doesn't feel like home. He kind of wishes he could come back, but he's kind of now charted his path, and he has no real way of moving back financially and making it work. He's trying to figure it out. So the Philippines are kind of home, but not quite home. He's a stranger. He's an outsider. He's a foreigner. It's not quite home. It's where he's living, but it's not quite home. He's a stranger and an exile in the Philippines. And notice what the author then of Hebrews says after saying all those who these guys all died in faith like this, they're strangers and exiles on earth. And then verse 14, for those who say such things, those who confess that they're strangers and exiles, those who recognize, man, I don't really fit in here anymore. This world I feel out of place, as we talked about this morning. Those who say such things make it clear that they are, what? Seeking, looking, seeking. And in this case, they're seeking a country of their own. They're seeking a homeland where they really belong. They're seeking a true, permanent place of residence. The author says, indeed, if they had been thinking of the country which they left, Haran, Egypt, if they had been thinking of the country which they had left, they had an opportunity to return. They packed up their tents, moved back to Haran, right? Moses could have said, you know what? Midian really is not that hospitable place. I just think it would be easier to go back to Egypt right now. I'm just going to go back to Pharaoh and say, hey, I'm sorry I left. Can I come back home? They would have had an opportunity to go back home. But, verse 16, but as it is, they desire a better country. They long for, ache for, yearn for, desire a better nation, a better country, a better homeland, specifically a heavenly one, and therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God. Why? Because guess what? He's actually prepared a better homeland for them. He's actually prepared a lasting city for them. No more wandering, right? No more trying to get it sorted out. No more feeling like an outsider. Someday there's a homeland where we're really at home. Someday there's a city and we're not going to feel like a wanderer and a pilgrim and a nomad even in our own country. How do you live as a stranger in exile on earth? Well, one of the things we talked about this morning is by doing good in your community. But there's another important element, and it's one we must not skip or ignore, and that other element is you got to live looking forward. You got to live looking for your true homeland. This world's not my home. I'm just a passing through, right? We mentioned that this morning. theologically not quite precise, but the idea is right. We're out of place. We're strangers and exiles. And we're looking for the eternal city, the city that's yet to come. We're gonna live looking forward because we know this city where we live right now, this country where we live right now, this is not our permanent resting place. This is not our stopping place. We're pilgrims here. We're nomads here. We don't ultimately belong here. So the question for you and for me is, are you living like a pilgrim, or are you living like a settler? Pilgrim or settler? How are you living? Are you putting all your eggs in the basket of getting life totally sorted out and figured out and squeezing every ounce of pleasure and joy you can out of the here and now? Or are you looking at the disappointments and the dissatisfactions of the here and now and doing so with frustration and resentment because this world doesn't satisfy all your longings, all your needs? That's living like a settler. Or you're like, I'm just a pilgrim here. I'm just a nomad here. I don't expect this world to meet all my needs. I don't expect this current country to satisfy all my desires. I don't expect it to meet all my joys. And when we live looking forward with confidence that God has provided a city for us, then one of the things we can do and we ought to do is we ought to kind of view our life as like a pilgrimage to the ultimate holy city. We're on pilgrimage to the celestial city. You've read Pilgrim's Progress, familiar with Pilgrim's Progress? Christian classic, and the story of Christian's journey from the city of man, the city of destruction, where Christian in the story is burdened down by guilt and sin, and he knows there's got to be a better life, and so he leaves the city of man and the city of destruction, and he's guided by evangelists along his journey, and eventually gets rid of his burden, and he goes through, the bog of despair and Vanity Fair and all these things on his journey until finally, where does he arrive? He arrives at the gates of the celestial city, the eternal city, his true homeland, the city he always was dreaming of, the grand happily ever after that every human heart aches for. Where is it? It's not here. That happily ever after that every great story tends to long for and point towards. We all want it. We all dream of it. In some senses, we're all created for it, but it's not here. That grand happily ever after is in the city to come, when the new Jerusalem comes down out of heaven like a bride adorned for her husband and gets planted on the new earth. And God wipes away every tear from her eyes and says, "There, my son. There, my daughter. Now you're finally home. This is what you've always dreamed of and always wanted." If we're going to really live as foreigners and exiles, we need to live looking forward to the city to come and do so with confidence, knowing that God has prepared that city for us. It will come. It will come. God doesn't promise something and fail to deliver on his promises. And if I could offer just a couple thoughts by way of maybe encouragement and wisdom along, how do you fan that into flame? How do you fan that forward look into flame? Well, one of the things you definitely should not do if you want to fan that into flame is you should not ignore unmet desires. You should not ignore disappointments. You should not ignore the sense that, man, this world sure doesn't seem to satisfy my heart's deepest longings. Don't ignore that. Instead, take those unmet longings and those desires and lift them up to God, right? And basically say, God, I don't know what all my heart is longing for, but in my heart, I sure wish it would be, and I sure wish there might be. And let God say, that's because you're made for a different world. C.S. Lewis famously said, if you find within yourself desires that nothing in this world can satisfy, that's a pretty clear indicator you're actually made for a different world. And God has promised that world to us. Someday, that world's going to come. Someday, that city's going to come. So let the disappointments come. Let the unmet desires come. Let the dissatisfactions arise, and turn those to God and say, God, I lift those to you, trusting that you know what to do with them. And someday, God, I trust that there'll be a city where my heart's deepest longings are completely satisfied and fulfilled. Live looking forward. If you want to live as an exile and a foreigner, then recognize there is a world to come, and you've been destined for it. Live looking forward with confidence to that world. Now, all of that presupposes and entails a particular relationship to this world. If you're going to live looking forward to the world to come, you have a particular relationship to this world and its flaws and brokennesses. And that's where 1 John chapter 2 shows up. So 1 John chapter 2 says this, "Do not love the world, nor the things in the world." Wait a second. Wait, hold on there. Don't love the world. I thought we were supposed to love the world. Well, God loves the world, doesn't he? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Aren't we supposed to love the world? It illustrates that words have a range of meanings. It's just the way language works. And so you don't just import every meaning of a word into a particular usage of a word. And in this case, do not love the world doesn't mean don't love the people of the world. It's not what he's saying. You're supposed to love the people of this world, and that's who God loves. What you're not supposed to love is the ways of this world, the systems of this world. This world in its anti-godness and its brokenness and its fallenness. Don't love that. That's what he means by the world, the world system. Don't love the world, nor the things of this world. Why not? Well, because if anyone loves the world, the love of God the Father isn't in him. If you love this world, and you're deeply attached to this world, and you expect this world to meet all your desires and satisfy all your needs, if you love the world like this, then there's a problem with your love for God. That's what he's saying. If you love this world, you don't really love God, because the current world system is against God. And then he explains, for all that's in the world, and then he lists off what's in the world. What does he have in mind? Here's the kinds of things in the world. The lust of the flesh, that is the desires of your body, the desires of your flesh, whatever they might be. And we've got all sorts of bodily desires that can get twisted and warped and all messed up when they're not centered on God. And those desires get out of whack, and they create all sorts of problems for us. The lust of the flesh, the desires of the body, the lust of the eyes. That happens to us too. And that's exactly what the marketing industry appeals to. They give you a commercial, and they want to appeal to the lust of the eyes. Bob has that. I don't have that. Why don't I have that? That's what Instagram appeals to. It's the highlight reel of everyone's life, right? And, wow, she got to go on that vacation. He got to go there. He did that. Look at his new car. Look at his new house. And then look at my life, and it's like, well, my life sucks. Right? It's the lust of the eyes. That's what's happening. All that's in the world, lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life. What he means by boastful pride of life is this quest to make our life like better than everyone else's. Like this competitive spirit that says, well, I'm better than you. My life's better than you, right? I'm going to get ahead of you. I'm going to beat you down so I can raise myself up. The boastful pride of life. That's the kind of stuff that drives the world. All that's in the world is those things, he says. And that stuff, he says, is not from the Father. It's from the world. That's why, if you love the world, you got a problem with your love for God. Because the kinds of things John's meaning by the world goes completely against loving God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And then John says this important little line in verse 17. And here's the facts about the world. The world is, what does he say? The world is, as you drive down the street through your town and your neighborhood, the world is passing away. Just look around your town. That's not going to be here for all eternity the way it is. The world with its desires, the world with its brokenness, the world with its anger, the world with its hostility, the world with its arrogance and competitive spirit, the world with its lust and its brokenness and its sin, and all, that's all passing away. And so is its desires. But the one who does the will of God continues to live forever. If you just entrust yourself to God and you walk in his paths, then guess what? When you reach your 97th birthday, you're just getting started. Can't wait to meet you on your 500th birthday, your 5,000th birthday, your 50,000th birthday. Someday we'll be there in that glorious city, in the presence of God together. If you do the will of God, you will live how long? Forever. Forever. Like, there's a whole lot more to come than meets the eye right now. So if this world is somewhat of a disappointment to you, if life hasn't turned out exactly the way you wanted it, if there's parts of this life where you have regrets and disappointments, maybe even you're holding on to some resentments about things in this life, guess what? That's like a blip on the radar screen of the totality of your life. Your life's a whole lot bigger and greater and longer than that. If you do the will of God, you're going to last forever. Always, when I think about some of these themes, I always think of the words of Mother Teresa. I paraphrase it a little bit, but basically here's what Mother Teresa said. When we actually get to heaven, from the perspective of heaven, whatever we've experienced in life, however great or however bad, will be like one bad night in a cheap hotel. And it's true. You got a whole lot more to live for than a bad night in a cheap hotel, and that's your current life. There's a lot more coming than that. And so if we're going to live as foreigners and exiles in this world, part of what that means is not only do we live looking forward, but we have to untangle our heart from this world. And that's sometimes hard, right? To untangle our heart from this world. There's things we enjoy. There's things that are pleasant. There's things that are good, and we should receive them as good gifts from God. But we can't set our heart on those things. We can't let our heart be too entangled with this world. We have to somehow figure out a way to untangle our heart from this world and set our heart on the world to come. We have to figure out how to do that, whatever that looks like. So, a couple pictures. That's my hometown. It's a classic kind of picture of Boise, Idaho. You can see it's late winter. There's still snow on the mountains up at the top where all that snow is. That's a ski resort. The peak of that mountain is a little over 7,000 feet. This is looking down Capitol Boulevard. You can see the city, the state capitol right at the end of the road down there against the foothills. That's downtown Boise, Idaho. Right behind where that picture is taken, there's a train depot. And that train depot is where my son and daughter-in-law got married. That's my hometown. Lived there most of my life. That's it. Like I said, PEI's been great and all, but by Friday, I'll kind of be ready to go home. Miss my kids. Miss the grandkids. Miss my house. Kind of miss my dog. I'll be ready to go home. But if I'm going to live as a foreigner in exile, as much as that's my home, it's also not quite fully my home. And I have to be okay with that. And I have to maybe find ways to untangle my heart from that. True? Next picture. Anyone recognize that place? Huh. A classic shot of Charlottetown. For some of you, that's your home. My wife and I have been struck driving around the island and talking to various people in various locations. How many people have lived on this island their entire life? Or how many people lived on the island for like their growing up years, went away, and they were like, as soon as we could, we moved back. We've been struck by that. People like it here, obviously. Apparently, it's a good place to live, right? And people like being here. And as we said, it's a beautiful city. In fact, is that Dunstan Cathedral? Is that how you say that in the background there? Oh, yeah, okay. We walked through that this afternoon. It's beautiful inside. It's great. It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful waterfront. Lovely, delightful people, you all included. All right? And yet, if you're going to be a foreigner in exile, you have to be honest that that's not fully your home. And we have to find ways to untangle our heart from that so that we don't try to squeeze and wring every ounce of satisfaction and joy out of this present world. Why? Because we're strangers and exiles, and we belong to another homeland. We belong to another country. Those who say such things are acknowledging that they are seeking a homeland of their own. If you're seeking a homeland of your own, then your present one is not fully and really your homeland. Somehow, we have to take the world we currently live in and say, yes, it's good. Yes, that's my home, but it's not my true homeland. And if I could, again, offer a little bit of encouragement and wisdom for how to do that, what I would say to you is memorize passages like 1 John chapter 2, 15 through 17. Memorize it and call it to mind frequently. Or memorize passages like Colossians chapter 1, 3 through 4, and call it to mind frequently. Remind yourself that there's a world to come. Maybe even read through Revelation chapter 21 and this vision of the new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. And even though it's a picturesque image, you're gonna remember, like, okay, I don't know how it's all going to play out, and I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I do know there's a city to come, and that's my city. And that's the city I really want, where my heart's deepest longings will be completely met, and all my dreams will come true. Because this world's not going to do that for you. So let's just be honest about that. There's this incredibly dramatic scene in the book of Revelation, in Revelation chapter 18, where Babylon comes crashing down. If you haven't read Revelation recently, which a lot of people haven't, Revelation 18, it's this really dramatic scene, and it pictures the devastation of Babylon. And in the story of the book of Revelation, what Babylon is it represents the city of man in all its glory, in all its wealth, in all its beauty, in all its opulence, and how people made themselves rich off of the wealth and beauty and luxury of that city. But that city is the city of destruction, and it's going to come crashing down. And so in Revelation 18, that city is being destroyed, and God is saying to you and to me, God is saying to his people in Revelation 18, he says, come out of her, my people, come out of her. Come out of her, my people, come out of her. And that's the call to you and to me. As much as we might love Charlottetown or whatever city you are from, as much as we might love Boise, Idaho, we have to realize that city is passing away. And there's a greater, better, richer, more beautiful, glorious city to come. So let's not set our heart on this city, on the city of man and the city of destruction. Let's set our heart on the city that is to come. That's part of what it means to live as a foreigner and exile. The reality is, when we look at everything we've talked about today, from the morning till now, the fact is, you and I, right now, are like temporary residents. We're here on assignment from the King. We're here on assignment from the King. We belong to the King's city, and we're here on King's business. And we're not supposed to get too attached to this world right now, because our true homeland is back in the capital with the King. So to end tonight, one more passage from the book of Hebrews, right at the tail end, some of the very last verses in the book of Hebrews, it says this. It says, so then, let us go out to him outside the camp, playing off of Jesus walking outside the city of Jerusalem on his way to be crucified. Jesus was crucified outside the city. So then, let's go out to him outside the camp, bearing his reproach. Whatever people think of us, for fixing our gaze on the city to come, for our beliefs and our ethics, let's go out to him, bearing his reproach. Why? Because here, we don't have a lasting city, and we're seeking the city that's to come. Let's live that way. We're here on business from the King. Someday, we're going back to the capital. Let's live for the city that's to come. Let's pray. God, there's so much about this world that's good and beautiful. So much about Boise that I love. And I'm sure for these people, Prince Edward Island, so much they love. And yet, we know this is not our final stopping place. There's a new heavens and a new earth that's going to come. It's going to be glorious, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be better than anything in our wildest imagination. So God, help us to fix our heart, to fix our heart in whatever way we can, with whatever practices and disciplines we can. Help us to fix our heart on that city so that we live for the New Jerusalem, the city that is to come, when we'll be together with you forever and ever, and with each other, and everything we've always wanted will come true, and everything that has been disappointing will be undone, and all that's bad will be made good and right again, and we'll have the happily ever after that we've always dreamed of. Make it so, God. Give us strength and courage to live for that city, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's a beautiful